What's going on, guys? It's your boy Sleazy here, and if you read the title of the video, you probably know what's about to come. We've seen multiple studies, seen multiple reports how conservatives are usually happier, they lead better lives, they have families, they're typically more attractive, they tend to focus on, actual life goals instead of focusing on, well, wokeness. And apparently leading to wokeness, which apparently nobody could have figured out that if you spend your entire time detesting how bad of a person you are, it's going to affect your mental state. Who could have thought? If all you do is say I'm a terrible person, you eventually get depressed and have anxiety. But apparently it took a researcher team to do that, and they came out to the conclusion that being woke means you have mental issues. Who could have thought? So I'm going to go over this article because with as much as the New York Post is woke and tries to justify everything woke, I'm going to need some time to dig through the study because I'm sure it's far worse than what the New York Post is saying. But here's the title. Woke people more likely to be unhappy, anxious, and depressed, new study finds. So let's see what they quote and how they try and justify that. Ignorance is bliss. No. Self-loathing leads to depression. It's why the first sentence is already cope. You're just ignorant. That's why you're happy. No, it's because we realize it's stupid. That's why we're happy and we don't care. Psychological researchers in Finland have created an assessment to measure an individual's commitment to principles of social justice and made some surprising findings across the Finnish population, including a negative correlation between progressive ideals and levels of happiness. And of course, it's in the EU, so they're going to be standard left. Like they're right wing, the right would consider left. So let's get this into perspective. Somebody who's already left is saying, holy shit, woke is really bad. This debate was largely data-free, and it could thus be considered a worthwhile question to study how prevalent these attitudes are. No reliable and valid instrument existed prior to the study to access the extent and prevalence of these attitudes in different populations, so I set out to develop one. Their research included intersectional feminism, critical race theory, queer theory, and other relevant academic disciplines that inform critical social justice. So everything woke. The whole idea that if you're a white man, you're born with original sin, and you must always atone for that in every way possible by giving everything up and admitting you're terrible. But not a cult. Totally not a cult. The pilot survey included 851 adult participants, most of whom were associated with the University of Turku. After refining the initial scale, the study was expanded to a more representative national sample of 5,000 participants, distributed via Helsingin Sanomat, Finland's largest newspaper. Yeah, I'm American. I speak American. In the end, their final critical justice attitude scale identified 7 truisms of woke people. If white people have on average a higher level of income than black people, it is because of racism. Universities' reading list should include fewer white and European authors. Microaggressions should be challenged often and actively. Trans women who compete in women's sports are not helping women's rights. We don't need to talk more about color of people's skin. A white person cannot understand how a black person feels equally well as another black person. A member of a privileged group can adopt features of cultural elements of a less privileged group. So they're already starting with the racism against white people. They're already book burning and white authors. Microaggressions are absolutely crazy and make no sense. They don't exist. Microaggressions are just your way of shaming yourself because you're depressed and you have nothing going for you in your life, so you want to nitpick something somebody else does. But I mean, I guess that's kind of what the study says. If you agree with any of this, you're mentally unstable and probably depressed and probably on antidepressants, which is probably why the FBI is watching you for the time that they could say, he was on our watch list or we were aware of them. Let's keep going. The gender divide was probably the most surprising to me. This was essentially true of women in such fields as social sciences, education, and humanities. By contrast, participants who worked in STEM were more likely to critique social justice efforts associated with being woke. So, if you are a logical thinking person capable of intelligent thought, you are more likely to critique wokeness. But if you did social studies, education, and humanities, you were probably depressed, self loathing, and in need of serious mental help. No, I'm glad there's a study to point to. However, the most concerning finding was the relationship between mental health and agreement with the scale. Specifically, researchers found a high prevalence of anxiety and depression in people who believe the statement, if white people have, on average, a higher income than black people, it is because of racism. More broadly, they found that those who identified as left wing were most likely to report lower mental well being. Yeah. I mean, this goes back into them being low IQ voters. This is exactly what it is. This is why the Democrats pander to them. They're low IQ voters. They can't think. The studies were quite robust with a sample size above 5,000 and good psychometric properties. However, the scale would need to be validated in North American samples in order to know how these attitudes manifest there. I encourage colleagues in the United States to study the prevalence of these attitudes in the country where they originate from. Okay. History lesson here. Wokeness was exported from France to the rest of the world. That's the origination of it. The US had a bunch of weird whack jobs because of the First Amendment who said, we're going to say all these things and we're just going to bash people over the head until it becomes prevalent, and have created a society where half the people are depressed and the other half of the people are like, we don't know what the hell you're on about. I mean, I don't know how else to say it. If you're woke, you have mental issues. And that's essentially what it boils down to. If you are woke, you have mental issues. If you believe any of the race baiting BS, you have mental issues. And the New York Post, a left leaning news propaganda agency, is just out here admitting it like, yeah, if you're woke, you have mental issues. I'm honestly shocked that they put this out. I got to make sure it's archived. I've got to make sure it's archived. Okay. And their cope is ignorance is bliss. No. Ignorant, well, I mean, technically, yes. Technically, you're right. But the implication is if you're not woke, you're just being ignorant. The research says if you look into this, it's all self-loathing pity party. I don't know. Is this a surprise to anybody? I want to hear your thoughts on this in the comments section, guys. But while you're there, like always, smash that like button. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you share. And until the next one, guys, be easy like sleazy.